Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Kelly's Diffie is back. He is better than ever. He is balder than ever. Where's the do-rag? Seriously.
The do-rag is right here, but it's like I woke up at 4:45 this morning because I thought that we were on a different schedule. So, yeah, and I kind of wanted to show everybody that since we were brushing our hair together this morning, this was the end result of what happened to me and what happened to you.
It's menacing. I'm actually thinking about getting a haircut. I know you probably knew I was thinking about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm surprised you haven't already had one.
I know it's the odds. It's the odds. It's nice to have you back on the show, man. It's been a while. Catch me up. I'm going to talk about skinwalkers at some point. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot, but yes.
Absolutely, yes. So I want to talk about skinwalkers and fluoride today. But so what's going on is I'm working on a City of Flagstaff beautification action project. Sorry about that. I bumped that there. Working with a new headset here, and the cord is a little shorter than what I'm used to, and I don't do like wireless headsets because obviously like technical issues. But anyway, so I'm working on this thing called beautification in action with the City of Flagstaff, which is where they're going through and wrapping all the utilities boxes in the city, and um, like the ones that are on Route 66 are primarily owned by what's called the Arizona Department of Transportation. So they're state and federally owned. And so we can't do any wraps on those. We have to get ones that are owned by the local um, utilities company and they're on private property. And those are very limited on Route 66. So I'm real proud to have been one of the few people. I'm going to be the first artist that's involved in this project that is featured on Route 66, and I was just granted the art grant on December. I'm sorry, on November 18th. So that's an exciting thing. Um,
Is it to beautify up the town?
yeah, they want to. So you get these utilities boxes, and they're like these like desert brown colors and stuff, and they're everywhere, right? And so what they're doing is they're putting vinyl wraps of artists' art around them to kind of dress up the place a little bit, make it not so.
That's what I really enjoy is like there's a lot of like I went to DC like a few weeks back and we were driving through and there's like a lot of graffiti on buildings. Restaurants would pay people to have like a symbol of their thing on their building and graffiti. And there I love looking at that stuff. I love graffiti in general. I love the art that people really do. But then we were in a really bad neighborhood of like Baltimore area. And I was like, look at that graffiti. And the graffiti said no shoot here, which is means like this is a sign that everyone's agreed that there's no shooting on this corner. And like my buddy's like, I don't think that's like graffiti art. I was like, well, the guy whoever wrote it, he knew calligraphy or something because he did the whole thing beautiful. It says no shoot here, even though there was blood stains all over the spot. I feel like nobody's abiding by those rules, my man.
Right, right, yeah. That's funny. Um, I love graffiti, dude. We get it on the trains out here and stuff. Obviously, there are guys who come out and they like spray paint, like I mean, like whatever their goofy name is, and they don't even try to, their tag name or whatever. They don't even try to art it up. It's just like spray paint. And you get those guys, and that kind of sucks. That's like
What do you
I don't
mean?
know. I
How
see
picky
like,
are you? Most people just draw a dick on a building and walk
well,
away.
yeah, I mean that's another thing, like so
It's
dicks on
art.
buildings. In 2023, it really is. Modern art has really taken a nosedive, I feel like, this year. And there's a lot of artists out there talking about it. It's a big controversy in the art world, apparently, which I'm not deeply involved in, but a little bit. So
How controversial is it? Tell me about it. Come on now. You don't like a
um,
banana with duct tape posted on the wall?
So the banana is at a certain angle. There's three of them that exist in the world. It's at a certain angle and a certain height, and the banana has to be replaced every 3 days. And I think that that is absolutely ridiculous.
Wait,
Somebody was able to charge
wait.
$250,000 a piece for that.
They replaced the banana?
Every 3 days, it has to be replaced.
I'm not mad at that because there's somebody in the banana business who's like, yes, thank God it's like what is it, Hunger Games, where they choose a random person out of the crowd. They just choose a random banana company to get a banana to supply it.
It has to be a specific type of banana. It has to be a specific weight. It has to be a specific color. It has to be like there's a lot that goes into the guy who designed the piece. He put a lot of work into it, but ultimately it's a fucking banana. Was it 5 minutes? It's
Yeah,
a
we're
fucking
5 minutes
banana.
in. You're fine. I know you're waiting on it.
Oh, dude. And so yeah, it's ultimately it's a fucking banana taped to a canvas and whatever angles, height,
I'm
style,
not mad
color,
at it,
be
dude. There's a
damned.
guy that's going to retire off that. His whole life is like, please stop shitting on my job. This is all that I have. It puts my kids through college. I wish we could see a time lapse of this guy's life that's just replacing that banana every day until he retires. And watching his kids walk to graduation. Son, you might be able to be a technician for NASA, but I changed a banana on a fucking canvas every single day or every
Day,
3 days.
right. Well, there's three paintings out there, so maybe it has to be done once a day to get all three of them done. I don't know if they do it if it's on a certain schedule where they're all replaced at the same time, or if they're done one day here, one day there, one day the next. To me, it seems like it'd be a lot easier to replace a banana, one banana per day than three bananas per day. And apparently, it's up to the art owner to replace their own banana, but they are under a contract where they have to use certain types of bananas if they purchase the.
Where are you getting your
Oh
information?
my God, dude, I've studied this art. So I'm an artist. So, like, to me, this is one of the most controversial and ignorant things that has ever happened in the world, let alone the art world. And I'm just
Why are you
like,
hating, dude? Calm down.
because I spend a lot of time making amazing art to have like one person in the world tell me that's amazing. I'm like, thanks. And like somebody goes and tapes a banana to a canvas and makes like $250,000 off of it. It's a little disheartening as an artist. It's like somebody who's like doing a podcast, for example, and they spend every day doing podcasts, and then like some dude comes by and farts on the microphone and like gets like a million viewers, and they're like, oh, that
Hey,
was
if I get the
yeah.
attention, that's good. Um,
Mm.
but you've seen my Instagram when I put up those photos. They're all just like good angles and stuff. You could take a picture at a restaurant of some like maybe a steak and some waffles. Yeah, I'm gonna put some surf and turf together. Where's that?
Yeah. No,
That's
surf and turf is seafood. And
I know, but that's like breakfast and beef. But you take a picture of it, and everyone will be like, "That's an amazing photo with like a dollop of ketchup on it." People are like, "That's so artsy. That's so photography style." But then if you look in the background, it's fucking Al Pacino and Oliver Stone chatting over a coffee. Nobody will notice that though. It's what I'm saying. It's like it doesn't matter, but it's some there's some weird angles. And I figured I don't know how many times you have to hit your head or how many times you have to do drugs or how many times, but there are some days you wake up and you're not feeling like 100%. You know what I mean? Not that you're sick, but this, the world looks different.
sure.
And it's where my eyes start catching angles certain ways. I'm like, yo, if you could walk around like this for the rest of your life, that would be amazing. You're not thinking about like later problems. I mean, scheduling's a bitch because you miss like 7 appointments in a row and everyone's like, where were you at? But like, I didn't even know I was supposed to be anywhere. I just woke up and thought I was, under the witch's spell, my friend.
That's a great way to put it. I don't know, man. Like, so I've noticed this. Like, I can take my camera out of my pocket and snap some random ass like photo with no focus, no subject matter, no whatever, and it'll get like, I've posted on social media and it'll get like 250 likes. I can set and compose a photo that is like well thought out and has beautiful subject matter and good lighting and all this stuff, and people will just ignore it. And I'm like, what is the appeal to like the worse something looks, the more people like it? Like I can take pictures like an ashtray with like a used condom in it, and people would be like, "This is fucking amazing," and I'm like, "That was completely by accident. Like I didn't even mean to have that on my camera. I don't know where that picture came from." And people are like, "Yeah, two hundred
Whose
thousand
condom
dollars,
is that?
right?" It's like, what the fuck,
That's when you
I'm
have
just
someone just randomly comment that are like, what is it? You go, damn, I just forgot the bit. Hang on a second. Oh yeah. So you said condom in the ashtray. Be like, hey, get your condom out of my ashtray, or maybe the ashtray's in the condom, man.
right. Who, dude? It's open to interpretation.
I
It's
don't know.
interpretive art.
I'm not mad at it. I wish this honestly, who's the mayor that probably does the most is like Blasio, even though he sucks. What was it? During the pandemic, he said he was going to bring back the arts, and they funneled like how many millions of dollars into that interpretive dance shit show that he had when people were like starving and dying on the street. So it's like, look, hey, art is art. And sadly, when people are hungry and living off the street, instead of donating $1 million to help out people in need, you want to just donate it to interpretive dance because that's what the people really want. They want interpretive dance.
Absolutely. The art world is an $84 billion a year market. I don't understand that. That's a lot of fucking money. I don't know where people get money to buy and spend on that type of stuff. And I can, like, every penny I make goes to some sort of life struggle. And so, at least currently, and I'm just like, I have such a small portion of that $84 billion, and I want to know how to get like a much larger portion of it. Like, I'd like to get like 1 million of that 84 billion.
Just a
But
piece,
you know,
just a little piece. That's all you're asking for.
that's actually just a section, a fragment of. And so, but yeah, um, apparently, good art, or what I mean, I consider good art, which is something that's thoughtfully processed, is not the end thing right now. It's, they want things that are, and even when I do chaotic stuff, like I see all these people who are like doing this, like, the problem is I live in Arizona. I don't live on one of the two coasts. I need to either live on the East Coast or the West Coast because those are the progressive art areas, right? And so, and I guess there's a lot of Arizona-based artists. I don't have the money for exposure. I don't have a lot of money for advertising, stuff like that. And that's what I'm finding is that like representation is very important in these type of games. And so that's why there are art agents and stuff, because these guys have the connections and know who's gonna, do whatever. But in order to get involved with those people, you have to have money. You have to, like
Well, you need
I look
one
around.
person to pick up your painting and take it to the extreme, and then your name is forever solidified in the art world as anything that you create, people are going to want first bet at because of the fact that you already have an established name. So it's just about doing that. Light your crotch on fire and run outside and flick some painting on a thing.
I mean, that's what I may have to do at some point. I mean, I don't know. Like, I've gone through so many, like, I think I know how to do things. I think I'm good at marketing. And everybody that I talk to is like, yes, we want your stuff. We want to do this. We want to do this. And then it becomes like this breaks just hit. So I get like the yes, the initial yes, and then it just kind of stalls out. And that's like working with galleries, working with companies. I mean, I've been talking with like local companies here who are like, yeah, we want your art on stickers and merchandise. And I'm like, great, email me your logo. And like some of these companies, I'm still waiting like 3 months down the road. Like, where is your fucking logo? Like, why is like flakiness
It's called
is the
ghosting.
ghosting? Yeah, I don't know what the hell it is. But it's like, and it's not like 1 out of 10 companies or 7 out of 10 companies, but it's like 10 out of 10 companies. And what's really frustrating is that there's 500 of these companies that are doing it. And it's like, look, if you don't want my shit, just say no. Would it just be easier to be like, ha ha ha, than to be like, yeah, here, keep emailing me every fucking day and keep sending me more information and keep like,
Do you think it's because you wear the I don't like morning people shirt and then everyone's just kind
yes.
of turned off?
So let me go ahead and I don't like mornings, morning
Damn,
people, or mornings, or people.
I'm all three of those things
Oh yeah, I know. I wore this specifically for you today.
because you got up
Just
at 4 a.m.
yeah, my alarm went off, and I was like, dude, okay. So at midnight, I'm looking at the clock, and I'm going like, I got a podcast in 4.5 hours. I need to get some fucking sleep and get some rest. So I don't have these crazy fucking bags under my eyes, which I have now. And so at 4:45, my alarm went off, and I was like, I just went to sleep like 30 minutes ago. What the fuck? Which I probably didn't. I laid in bed from 10 o'clock till, but I've always, I get excited about things. Um, so
You were excited for
I'm usually,
this?
I was very excited for this. We haven't talked
You,
in months, dude.
I
So you
know.
used to call
Sorry.
me every morning. No, it's not every
Not
morning.
every morning.
Not every morning. Every Sunday morning, you would call me on your way to get a haircut and on your way to get Jello.
Hold on a second. I did not call you every Sunday morning on my way to get a haircut. I did not get a haircut every week.
Oh my God, bullshit! You didn't. You went to like a 6 month period, dude, where I got call records, dude, and you would be driving by the like quick clips or whatever it is right there by.
No way.
Yeah, dude. For real. And you were like, I gotta get a haircut. And I was like, man, you just got a haircut last
Well,
week.
my doctor was like, "What are you drinking? Because your B12 is off the charts." And I was like, "I've been like psychologically thinking that my hair's been growing really, really fast." He's like, "You sound paranoid." And then after he tested my blood, he's like, "Oh yeah, B12 makes your hair grow really, really fast." He's like, "Maybe slow down on your B12." And I was like, "So I'm not crazy. My hair has been getting long."
Yeah. So yeah, I remember. Yeah, that was during that time, and you were also experiencing you were doing a lot of drinking a lot of moonshine at the time. So,
Damn, call me out, you jackass.
oh yeah, hey, let's do it. Every I know the podcasts are always about other people, and you are not the kind of guy to talk about yourself on them. So I like to call you
Can
out
we
on
talk
things.
about skinwalkers? I got to know more about these skinwalkers. Everyone keeps messaging me about skinwalkers, and I just
The
don't have any
Skinwalker,
information.
the people in my area will not say that name. Okay, I
Why?
live on a Navajo reservation. I live in the
Jesus
like one of the
Christ.
largest Navajo.
Why did you buy property there?
Oh man,
Did you not
this
see
place
Pet
is amazing.
Cemetery?
Yeah. So we live like there's a Hopi res and there's the Navajo reservation and the Dene reservations and there's a lot of reservations around here. Like I live in an area where like this is where the Skinwalker originated, and people won't say that name. The Native Americans here, they don't use that word. It's not a light thing. Even the new generations of kids don't like who aren't so much into the culture won't talk about that a lot. Um, this area is heavily known for. There's actually a place like right around the corner from me, probably I don't know, 60 or 80 miles, 100 miles from me. That's called Skinwalker Canyon. And it was featured on an episode of Zach Bagans' Ghost Adventures a few years ago or whatever. Um, and it was kind of funny that they had this old native lady out there. The Native Americans around here are very um, they don't like the white men. Um, because of what the fuck we did to them. I mean, like we did some really shitty things to them, but that was hundreds of years ago, and I didn't do anything like that to any of these people, nor would I. So, and there's a lot of us who feel that way, but there's a lot of us who probably don't. You know what I mean? I mean, this is a weird, racially charged, culturally charged area. Um, I live next to a place called the Apache Death Cave. It's 30 miles east of here. It's in a little place called Two Guns. And years ago, probably 200 years ago, maybe 150 years ago, I guess the Apache kidnapped a Navajo princess, 13-year-old girl, and they took off back to their wherever they were from. And on the way, like the Navajo people, like they sent out a war party to go retrieve this girl, and they trapped these like I don't know, maybe 75 Apache in this cave out here. And by the time they caught up to him, the Navajo girl had already been killed or died for some reason. And so these Navajo people were pissed. This war party, not happy with the Apache. They trapped them out here, and then they like in this cave, and then they drove their horses. The horses were outside of the cave. They drove the horses into the cave, then killed the horses, then set them on fire and suffocated all the Apache inside. Pretty fucking gnarly.
Sounds like a movie Nick Cage would sign up for.
Right? Yeah. So just to give you sort of like a cultural idea about how things go here. I don't like to like I'm speaking from like only like what I've learned studying as much of this as I possibly can. But like the Navajo people were considered like these drifters, right? They didn't have um like a home base, I guess. They kind of like moved around and they were known as traders and whatever, and they weren't very popular people in this area for some reason. Something happened to create the curse of the Skinwalker. I don't know what the catalyst was there. I don't There was something that like somebody did something to these Navajo people and pissed them off, and what they would do is they would place the curse of the Skinwalker on these people. And so what the Skinwalker is it can take on the form of another animal, of another mammal or another being. Um, they're humans. They're human like witches or shamans or something like that. And so like the shaman performs a ritual and uses a pelt, usually from a wolf or coyote, is what is like the popular sort of thing, bear, um, mountain lion, things like that. Usually it's a large predator, it's an apex predator. And then so they perform the ritual using those skins and pelts. And then I don't know if they take on the form themselves, if they shapeshift like a werewolf would, or if it summons a being. There seems to be like two different. The native people around here don't like to discuss these things, especially with white folks. It's very taboo for them. Um, so it's taboo for them to discuss it amongst themselves. It's even more so to discuss it outside of their culture.
Those skinwalkers are shape-shifting beings. They're humans, though, so they could be killed.
They could be, or they could not be. See, there's two different schools of
Oh my God, which one is it?
some of these could be summoned entities, like a demon or something that takes on the form of a wolf or coyote or bear. And then that creature goes out and stalks down whoever the curse is placed on, right? So
So wait, it's not aliens.
they're magical beings. Maybe they are. I mean, so when you start getting into the supernatural, the realm of the supernatural, like I don't know if me and you have ever talked about this. I do some paranormal investigation.
Yeah, we talked about last time.
So when you start getting into the realm of things like the supernatural, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, all seem to be somehow linked. And like people are starting to talk about like Bigfoot being an interdimensional being. Um, and so that leads me into things of like the skinwalkers. Maybe the skinwalker is a Bigfoot that can change shape. I don't know because they're so secretive about it, like the rituals and stuff. So, but we do know like certain things about it, and there's probably people who are more um like knowledgeable about it in the world than I am. But like I said, it's hard to get any. Like I've tried discussing this with a lot of people out here, and people are like, when you say it, they're like, "Don't say that word. Don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. We don't say that."
Well, what do you
So it
want me
could
to
be
call them?
right.
Skinwalker Americans?
So, true story. I've only been on one hunting trip in my life. Um,
They didn't want you
when
back,
I
did they?
was when I was they were like, you're a savage. You killed everything in the field.
First, it's
Um,
the logo makers, and now it's the hunters.
I nobody wants me, man. I don't fit in anywhere.
I just want to
Um,
be your mail person that shows up and goes, "This guy bought a house next to the goddamn Navajo reservation. What a jackass.
right.
Why would you do that? They've made movies about not doing that.
You know, they were already here. We didn't know when I came here and bought this place that I was moving into a fucking like a war zone.
Did you not Google it?
No,
For God's sakes, Zillow exists.
I was 29 years old. I had just gone through a divorce and a rough breakup with the chick that I had dated after my divorce. And I was dating a girl here in Flagstaff, and I was just experiencing like weird moments in my life. And I was like, you know what? This girl was like, move out here with me. I was like, great. Within 60 days, I was like looking for a new place to live because like me and her were not compatible on the like live together side at all.
You ever get violent?
No, well, she was violent. I've experienced a lot of violence in relationships over the years. I'm not a violent person. Um,
You
I'm a
wanted
big guy.
you one of them pacifists?
I'm not a pacifist. I'm a peaceful man. So I spent a lot of years being violent. I dealt drugs. When I was a kid, when I was 17 years old, I worked for a kid we called Hand Grenade Howie. And sometimes I would go to um
What a name. What a name. That sounds like a garbage pail kid's card.
well, he was an Asian kid who had his dad was a military contractor and he somehow had access to things like hand grenades and guns and stuff like that. By the time I was 17, I was very heavily armed and I was working as basically muscle for this guy. And I would go places and like kick people's hands into, shut in a locker or something like that because they owed him some money or whatnot. Doing bad things. I lived a very violent lifestyle for a lot of years. And so I'm now a peaceful man. The difference between somebody who's peaceful and somebody who's harmless is that a peaceful man has to be capable of some form of violence. You can't be peaceful without being capable of violence. Otherwise, you're just harmless. If you're not capable of violence to begin with, you're not really peaceful. You just don't have the option of choosing peace over violence.
Yeah, Mike Tyson didn't.
Right. So,
I don't blame you for it. He turned out to be a pretty good guy.
you know, the things in my past created the person I am today. So I'm not proud of a lot of things that I did, but I am proud of who I am. And I couldn't have become who I am without having gone through the things that I did.
Apparently, you're building sculptures around your towns. That must be a good place to turn out.
Well, I'm doing some art there. It's going to be painted art that's applied as a wrap, but at some point I would like to just get into sculpture and some larger art. It's just a stepping stone into that. But yeah, I'm involved with my community as much as I can be. Obviously, I wear this shirt for a reason. I just recently found this shirt a few days ago at Walmart. If I'm even allowed to say that word on the air, but
Why wouldn't you be able to say Walmart?
I don't want to because I don't want to plug someplace like that. You know what I
You
mean?
don't like establishments where people get groceries?
Yeah, but I don't like establishments that put small business out of business.
Well, tough shit, because the world's filled with them.
Yeah, I know it is.
You're not going to be able to avoid them. They're going to take over
These
everything.
towns the towns allow these businesses into their towns, and then they're like, "Oh, you destroyed all the small business." Well, yeah, what the fuck did you think was going to happen,
I know they're building up on top of them Navajo reservation camps.
right? So, and back to the Skinwalker. Um,
Finally, thank God.
yeah. So that brings us. See, I tried to segue into the Skinwalker earlier when I was talking about flaky people. And then I was gonna be like, and speaking of flaky skin and blah blah blah. And then so
That's a shit segue, dude.
hey, that was a great segue, dude. Flaky skin.
No,
Anyway,
dandruff would
flaky
have been better.
skinwalker. Yeah, dandruff skinwalker. There's a lot of hair on a wolfy skinwalker, man. So like
Oh, so they are hairy people. I keep thinking like, because it says it's not in their name though. It's just Skinwalker. You
right,
picture
skinwalker. So
someone
you
that
think bald?
I
Yeah.
think of Jim Carrey as fireman, whoever that guy is. It's all burned up.
Freddy Krueger, right? So yeah, so the skinwalker is a shapeshifter of types. Skinwalker Ranch, for example, they talk about these things called dire wolves that may be related somehow to skinwalkers. And dire wolves are very old and ancient things that may still exist here. And they're like 10-foot tall wolves. And I've seen some wolves, man. Like I owned a wolf hybrid that was like 3.5 feet tall. He was big, 80 pounds, real skinny. Um, and
Damn, did you lose your train of thought again? Hit the bong one more time.
no, I was about to, but I was just thinking about, no, I wasn't really losing my train of thought. I was just thinking about the size of a 10-foot fucking wolf, man. So here's the interesting thing about Skinwalker Ranch. Before it was sold to um, the people who owned it before Bigelow Aerospace owned it.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah. So Skinwalker Ranch was in one family for 90 years, and they never reported anything weird. Then they got into some financial trouble, and it was sold for $250,000 back in like 1994 to a family who then began. They were also in financial trouble, but then they began experiencing these strange and interesting events and occurrences, right? Like all these bulls got stuffed into a trailer where they wouldn't have fit into allegedly. And we don't ever see pictures of this. We just hear like these stories and shit. So then like they told these stories and it became sort of this pop culture thing. Well, then the United States government got involved with it and started doing some work out there. And then Bigelow Aerospace came in, I guess, and purchased the ranch for $1 million. So it got the people who had bought the ranch out of their financial difficulties. Then all of a sudden, it became like the local legends were like, yeah, these things have been going on for years and years. But the original family who owned it denies those claims, saying that they had never experienced anything supernatural or paranormal on that ranch. And they had lived there for almost 100 years. They had homesteaded that place, and it had been the family for generations. So Bigelow Aerospace comes in, and Mr. Bigelow begins investigating this property and they start discovering all these crazy things that are happening, like a half platypus, half stegosaurus dinosaur that appeared out of nowhere and approached the research team and then disappeared. And so like weird things and like these giant wolves that appeared and like the Skinwalker, but they have there's no photo evidence of these things that existed. Then you get this guy like Stephen Greenstreet, I think is his name, goes in and does an expose on Skinwalker Ranch and talks about like there's a new guy who owns it and like everybody who works there is Mormon. The guy who owns it is Mormon. His name is Brendan something or other. He's from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. And he bought it from like the Bigelow people and they're doing experiments out there now. And now it's a big show. Uh, Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, and they have like pseudoscientists out there working on the place and doing these like weird experiments. And so like they're discovering some things like they've been talking about like a military frequency that they've been working with out there, whatever. But you guys can do all your own research on that you want. I could sit and talk about that for. I mean, there's like a
Well, is it like a lab testing? Is it like a lab test or something?
they're doing some like different types of experiments. They have like they're doing some drilling out there. They've got like lidar that they've been running out there. Trying to see what's underground. I think there's something underground out there, maybe some sort of secret military facility at Skinwalker Mesa. But all these things, like anytime you start dealing with the paranormal, you start dealing with like militaries, and all of a sudden the military is involved, right? So here we have like there's a 1.6 gigahertz communications frequency that the military uses allegedly, and that frequency is being picked up all over Skinwalker Ranch in different places, and even above Skinwalker Ranch, like half a mile up or whatever. So they've been launching model rockets through the air there, and they've been doing like they fly over and drop things out of a helicopter, trying to see what's there, see if there's a solid object that's cloaked there or something. But then whenever Stephen Greenstreet gets into it and starts talking about the stuff that they're doing out there and starts going out there to experiment himself and conduct these type of things, like he's doing like an analysis and he's trying to debunk what's going on out there. And I think he does a pretty good job because a lot of the stuff that they're doing out there is like there's no evidence of it. Like you're watching it on video and you're still not getting any evidence. Um, so it's a little bunch of stories. And then like so part of the um Bigelow research team that worked out there, they said that Mr. Bigelow would get very upset when he would call and be like, "So what's going on?" And they're reporting like nothing, no activity, no, UFOs, no weird stuff. So he would get upset about that. And so in order to keep him from getting upset, they just started making up elaborate stories, um, allegedly, and to keep him happy. And so that's where like all these legends of Skinwalker Ranch now are coming from and stuff. It's a bunch of made up stuff. And on the title, I guess on the land deed, it's listed as an entertainment resource or an entertainment property of some sort. Um, so yeah, it's like,
So are we calling real or bullshit on it?
oh yeah, complete bullshit on it.
Okay. So it's just a marketing thing.
It seems to be, it really does seem to be. And I can't say definitively, but when you look at Stephen Greenstreet's documentary, like I said, there's like a 6 or 8 part. You can look it up on YouTube. It's The Office Basement, and he goes through and he he fucks up Lou Elizondo, who was supposed to be like the ATIP coordinator or whatever for the UAP stuff that's been coming out. Well, allegedly, Luis Elizondo has really no connection to any of that. And he came out and said, "Well, I was in charge of this." But when you look at his military record, he wasn't in charge of like a pot pissing.
There's I mean, did anybody forget when they used to like during World War II and all that when they used to knock on people's doors and try and sell like nuclear bomb shelters and things of that sort?
Mm,
Well, did they have the bomb shelters or not? Because if those things were underground, maybe that's one of the things is leading to the Skinwalker. There's just a dude down there with a bunch of cans of beans that's just playing with his little FM radio, waiting for the world. They said 2 more years and I can come out of this hole.
right? That's possible. That's a real serious possibility too. Like, who the fuck knows, man? I mean, you say that, and then I start thinking about like the mole people of Las Vegas, right? Where there's like entire civilizations that exist under modern civilization in a place like Las Vegas.
I know. Why do we call them mole people? They get fucked up when it rains too.
Oh yeah, dude. They open those floodgates shit and kill people, dude. Like Lots of them. That's the
But
thing. They have no warning, man. They have no
that's not
warning when they do that.
that's not like I hate to be that guy that's like, should we at least let them know, like just yell down the hallway or something at him? And he's like, nah, just hit
Put
the
on a
button.
siren or something, right? Yeah,
Right? Yeah, they
yeah,
have
yeah.
sirens for when a freaking class one tornado is coming through. That's not even going to hit anybody.
Right. So, and we talk about that. Like, so the town that I live in, Flagstaff, that brings me to an interesting thing about this town. Our town has a bunch of underground tunnels in it too. And everybody here talks about how that was created during Prohibition and was used for, smuggling liquor around and whatever. But the reality is the matter is the railroad runs through Flagstaff. And who built the railroad? Chinese. And what was taking place in this area during that time was that if you were a Chinese rail worker, you weren't allowed to walk around the streets during the day.
Yeah, people were killed built in those things, and they just went right over them.
Yeah, exactly. And so these underground tunnels were built here for those people to live in.
I can't get over the education on this show. I'm telling you, I'm fucking the education on this show is amazing.
I'm sure people have watched episodes with me in the past and they're like, they see me joking around and us having fun and doing whatever and talking about all kinds of bullshit. The reality of the matter is, like, I know a lot of things. I live in a part of the world where a lot of crazy shit has happened. And there's so much fake history here because people want to preserve like this image, right? Of like, well, Flagstaff isn't a really bad place, but bullshit, it wasn't a bad place. This place is one of the worst fucking places in the world. We made people live underground here and build a city underground. And then like so sometime in the recent past, they've gone in and determined that all of this was dangerous for the public, so they went and filled it in allegedly. And what I think they've done is they blocked off a lot of entrances to it, but there's an alleged, I mean, there's a lot of rumors about people who live under here now currently under the town, the homeless people, the transient population. I live on um right on I-40. We're on the I-40 corridor and I-17. So what happens is I-17 is a corridor from Mexico that comes straight up into the United States. A lot of human trafficking takes place here. A lot of illegal immigrants are coming up through the southern border and they come here and they hit like from Flagstaff, they can go to LA, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Albuquerque, or back down to Phoenix. You've got like it just like goes everywhere from here. Um, so our transient population is kind of big in this town. And I've talked to some homeless people here who believe that there's a major human trafficking operation that's based out of Flagstaff. Um, like more so than just like the immigrants coming in and dispersing, but also like like they get brought in by coyotes and stuff is what they're called, which are they pay people to bring them across the border in these trucks or whatever. And then they kind of just go, like I said,
How did we get here from skinwalkers? Holy shit.
well, I'll get back to that here in a minute. It all has to do with government involvement with these things, right? So then we got government's involved with human trafficking, apparently, allegedly around here is the terms. Um, I'll try and bring it all full loop. I don't know how we got onto this subject, to be honest, but I know that it's going to tie in here somewhere. But like, so, and then on I-40, you've got like the drug trafficking trade, right? Like drugs are produced in LA and then trafficked from LA outwards all over the country here. So we have like a CIA building here. This is like an FBI training grounds. We have like all kinds of DEA. We have a lot of government facilities here in Flagstaff.
Damn, everybody's building on the reservation camp.
Oh, dude. Camp Navajo is here. We have two of the only existing above ground ICBMs like left in the country. Almost all of the ICBMs that exist now are underground in silos, but
You're in
we have
Arizona,
two.
right?
Yeah, I'm in Arizona.
Yeah, that's why. It's because it's like the United States trash can. They just dump all their weapons and shit out there because it's nothing but desert.
Well, New Mexico is host to the Waste Isolation Pilot Project, which is where they store a bunch of nuclear radiation and waste. And then out here in Arizona is also a trash can, in Nevada and Utah. We have so much open space out here as opposed to the East Coast and the eastern parts of the United States that it's really easy to dump shit and do
Yeah,
things out here.
it's
Area
it's
51 is out here,
yeah,
S4.
it's not talking trash on your state. It's just the fact that it's so unappealing for a lot of what people are attracted to, which might be programmed into us, which is that like beach lifestyle or something where there's like water, mountains, anything that's an attraction. Like snowboarding's a big attraction. So a lot of people go to California because you literally have snow, beach, all that. My town's only an attraction because we got the beach. But if you go to like Baltimore, where it's like it's like a city, and it's like it's not. I mean, when I went to DC, I was walking around like this is our state capital. It looks like shit. Like, because it's just they stopped caring. They used to actually care and try and glamify up the city a little bit, but it's just because the populations get so dense, people stop caring so much. That's why everyone now, I think the opposite is happening of moving to giant cities. I think now people are trying to find like nice land that can just be secluded to themselves because they're so used to being on top of each other. But Arizona and Nevada, that area is such drastic climates that it's not still appealing in that factor of being away from everybody because it's such crappy conditions for a lot of people. Not you, maybe, but for a lot of people.
Well, a little known fact is there are 14 climate zones that exist, I think, in the world. And in Arizona, we have 13 of those climate zones, all except for beach tropical. So, like where I live in the mountains and it's snowing right now. It was snowing last night. I've had snow. I'm 6'4" and I've had snow piled up on either side of my driveway that I had to shovel out that I couldn't reach the top of when I put my arms up like 9 feet in the air. And so people don't think about that in Arizona. But then 2 hours south of here is literally like the hottest desert on the planet. And in between, you have all kinds of fucking like it's wild, man. Like Arizona is truly the definition of what I would call the definition of the Wild West. Um, we have mountains, we have deserts, we have rivers, we have forests. I live in the nation's largest natural pine forest, man. In the largest national forest in the United States, Coconino County National Forest. Um, it's the second largest county in the United States, but
Are you
only by
sales
landmass.
pitching your damn state to me?
No, it's just weird, dude. There's a lot of interesting things out here. Arizona's a wild place to live, man. Like, and everything out here wants to kill you, dude. From like, there are these little insects like this called kissing bugs or assassin
Sounds like
bugs.
New York.
Dude.
Everybody wants to kill you.
Yeah, right. Except for it's not people out here. Well, the people here want to kill you too, I guess. Everybody here is like, this is a crazy place, dude.
Go ahead, my wallet's empty.
Right? Yeah, no, I haven't carried cash in I don't know how
Just leave
long.
my Costco MVP card, you son of a bitch. Just like I got miles on that thing. I got some bonus points coming up. They're going to give me one of them free 2 liter of Cokes
Right?
once I buy $400 worth more of groceries.
Right.
I really hate that the world has come to a point where employees are only justified and seem significant when they're given a fucking pizza party. What is that? Why do we do that? And the UK doesn't do that. That's so sad. Give us a raise. That's what we want to feed our families. We'll take the pizza slices home. They don't let you. They don't let you take the pizza slices home. They say, this pizza's for the group. You're like, well, I have a family and I can't feed them without a raise. So can I take a slice home for my kids that are
Oh,
starving?
hell
No.
no.
No,
Uh,
don't do
Go home and
that.
tell them about it. Let them smell your breath.
Yeah.
Your kids, I had pizza
It's
for lunch.
so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, dude. Our country, I don't know, man. Like I'm blown away by the things that I've seen occur in the last 3 years. I feel like the Large Hadron Collider project in CERN fucked us up in 2012, or 2014 or sometime, man, when they started fucking with these little microcosm black hole things and like discovered the multiverse. And like there's a reason we discovered that there's a multiverse, right? And it's because we're fucking interdimensionally
I'm
traveling,
not
I feel
even
like, or
worried about that, dude. The shit I'm worried about is that there's someone out there sniffing paint cans and looking for skinwalkers in somebody's house. And there's a child that's waking up thinking he's going to see Santa on Christmas and gets bit by a crackhead. That's what's scaring
oh
me.
man. I met Santa yesterday.
Is he a nice guy?
He was a really nice guy. I was walking through Walmart And I was actually there with a friend of mine, taking him to go pick up some stuff for his house. And as we were walking to the store, I seen this guy and he walked by and I was like, him and I had a moment like there were other people in the aisle walking with him opposite of me. I was walking the opposite direction and there were other people walking in my direction. And him and I like looked at each other and just kind of locked eyes as we walked by each other. And then he continued on and I continued on. And then I was like, I have to turn out. He was wearing a red flannel shirt. He had a white beard, like down to here, long white hair. I was like, had little brown glasses. I was like, what the fuck? So I turned around and I walked back and I was like, hey, Santa Claus. And when I did, he like turned around. And so I walked up to him and I said, I put my hand on his back and I rubbed his back for a minute. He's an old guy. And I was
You
like,
fucking weirdo. Why
just,
would you
hey,
do that?
just because, watch this, dude. Like, I said, hey,
You,
Santa.
you stabbed the
I
shit
said,
out of you.
I, I said, yeah, dude, 6 times. I'll show you the scars. No, but he turned around and I put my hand on his back and I said, hey, man, I just wanted to say, like, put my hand on his shoulder, and he kind of rubbed his shoulder a minute and said, I just wanted to tell you, Santa, that the only thing I want for Christmas this year is just for you to enjoy the day. And I swear to God, that old man, like tears welled up in that old man's eyes, and he reached into his pocket and he said, I want to give you this.
Stab, 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 stab.
Pepper spray, taser. It was crazy, dude. He fucking He reached his pocket and had pulled out a coin, a wooden coin that says, I met Santa. I made the nice list. And I posted it on my Instagram, on my Arizona underscore artistry Instagram there. And so you can go take a look at it. But I was like, and he's like, just put this out by the milk and cookies that you leave for me, and I'll make sure you get something special, is what he told me when he handed it to me. And then I said, thank you, Santa. And I turned around and walked off.
That's what my whole life has been moments like that where there has just been like, I wouldn't even call it weird shit. It's just not normal shit where it's like that develops a person's personality. And I try, like, it's hard to describe that stuff to people. I think we've talked about where I witnessed a drug deal when I was on my way to CVS. Like, there's just a bunch of things that you're not in this. But here's the thing that is acceptable. And I really like that story, but it does not happen most of the time. Other times, if you live in a place like New York, you get pushed off a fucking train platform onto where an oncoming train is going. And that just happened like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
There are just a lot of things. I mean, look, and I wish the world was like it to where a kid could go up to I don't think you can do that anymore. I just don't think we're in that place in this country. I just think it's a world problem. I don't think it's a country problem. I just think everything's gone so a lot of things have changed in the psyche of the American public and also the world as a whole. And I don't think we'll ever be at the point again where you like it's even for me, less than like 30 minutes away when I go to like my buddy's house. He lives like kind of a little bit like a bit of a drive away. But we were just skating, going through to go to the grocery store because we're like, we haven't done this in years. Might as well, take a little trip. And there's these apartment complexes like condos that are all exactly the same. There's no distinct difference about any of it anymore. It's all like they're all about 6 stories high. Probably each floor has one apartment complex. And they're just, I mean, but the whole lane or neighborhood looks like it was like just built. Nobody's even touched it before. So we're skiing through and we get lost because everything looks exactly like everything. And eventually we found a water park. They had a water park in there. I was like, what the fuck? But we started noticing kids scootering on the street, no helmets, just by themselves, like little 7-year-old, 6-year-old kids just scootering all down the street and down the lane. People were walking with a stroller, they were talking. And we started noticing that this place had looked like it had been like when I was a kid in the 90s. And I was like, this is so weird to me, and it shouldn't be weird, but it's just because we haven't seen this in a long time. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of like this thing's like in the past a little bit, but everything's brand new. I thought we were thought we are all tripping on drugs. It was so foreign to everything that we know now because you don't see that anymore. Everything
Right. There's
now
a
is
few little places that are trapped in time like that that are, yeah. Everything is so fast paced, right? Nobody wants to be around each other. Nobody talks to each other. Nobody is friendly to each other. waving to each other on the streets. Kids don't go outside and play in the park. Like I got parks around here, dude. I never see a kid in the park, dude. Like when I was a kid, it was like, fuck, man, we were on our bicycles and we were gone from sunup to sunset. And like we were never inside. We didn't, we played football in the street. I don't see that shit happening here, man. Like I don't see like you rarely see people even walking down the street for exercise.
And it's not even that like the world has gone shittier, because I mean, it kind of has, but if you really examine from like what were the class peaks when I was a kid, when there was this giant fear that you can't leave your kid in a room in a doctor's office by themselves. And there were these psycho killers. Remember, everything on the news was like psycho killer. I think what's her name? The one lady who's like the woman of death, or the angel of death, that killed like 60 something babies in a hospital or something like that. Like there was obviously OJ. There was a lot of stuff that was still controversial, big things that were going on. It's not that different today. It's just it seems like that it's more frequent to where they maybe stop reporting so much of it, if that makes sense.
I think what it is the information society that we live in um, is so fast paced because think about this, man. The internet has only existed for like 20 years, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. Yeah. Like the internet didn't exist before like 1994, dude.
Couldn't even Google that you were moving into a reservation spot.
All right. Yeah. It's a new tool to us. It's a new tool to us, man. Like we don't always think about like there are times that like my wife will come up and be like, how do I do this? And I'm like, you have the Google machine. Like literally, there's no reason that people today can't do anything that they want. Like if you're paying somebody to come and do something for you, it's because you're too lazy to look up how to do it on YouTube or how to Google it or you know what I mean? That's where it is with us. And the same is with the information like news. Like news travels so fast through the internet. And Denzel Washington approaches this. He does a great interview in Hollywood like 10 years ago, and I applaud him for it, where he really calls out the media, the drive-by media for shit like fake news and just he says it's not even like about being right anymore. It's just about being first. You hear a story and you put it out there right now, boom, before anybody else can break the story, we got to put it out there. And you go back and fact check it and find out it's all bullshit. We're seeing that a lot with like the Ukraine war and stuff, man, where people are like people and media sources are posting footage. And it's like, well, this happened 20 years ago. This is the same footage that they posted 20 years ago. Why are we seeing that now? This isn't something that's current because they're not fact checking their sources anymore. They get something from one or two sources and all of a sudden, well, that's fact checked. Well, that's not fact checked. That's bullshit. In Ireland, I have a friend who did a drive-by with a chainsaw in Ireland because they don't have guns, and he attacked a state worker with a chainsaw from a moving car.
How the
Eason.
fuck do you do that?
Yeah, okay. I don't have video footage of it, but this is what he claimed and told me. And so he was he was going to prison. I used to play GTA with this guy when he was awaiting sentencing.
You
And
come across a lot of weird people on GTA.
yeah, absolutely. So he was awaiting sentencing. His handle gamer tag was Savage Eason. And he told me that in Ireland, it doesn't matter what you're accused of. If two or more people say you were doing it, that's enough to convict you with or without fucking evidence.
It's like China.
It's crazy, right? So like I get pissed off, me and you get pissed off at fucking Joe Blow over here, and I'm like, hey Robbie, fuck this guy, and you're like, yeah, fuck this guy, and we're like, oh, okay, so let's make up something about him, and all of a sudden he's in prison. What?
But that's like besides our legal system, that's like that on like Earth though. Like people, if you hear a rumor get spread, all you need is a couple people believe in it. Next thing you know, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, well, we see that all the time with people like high profile shit that's in the news. Like, so this guy gets accused of cutting his wife's head off or something. And then all of a sudden, whether he's
You
convicted or
talking about
not,
OJ?
he's guilty. Well, I'm not going to name any names because I
You
don't want my
think he's
head cut
innocent?
off. I don't know.
I don't think so.
He took his children to his wife's funeral, dude.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I don't think he's necessarily innocent though, but I've been trying to invite him on the show for since the show's beginning. I just want to know about Naked Gun. That's it. We're about to lose a whole chunk of history because everyone keeps putting knife emojis in his comments every time he makes a video. I'm like, guys, please. I just want to ask him about Naked Gun, and then I'll ask him about the OJ stuff. I actually contacted the guy who the waitress was sleeping with, who was supposed to go and give her the purse, but he sent his uh coworker, and that's the guy who got killed with the waitress that OJ allegedly killed.
Okay.
So I contacted him to talk about it because I wanted like to talk to him about the OJ murder stuff because he posts a lot on Instagram about it.
I seen a post on some social media the other day where like this lady was like interviewing OJ the after the, slaying of his ex-wife, and he made some sort of comment to her about like, I have something for you later, or I have a surprise for you, or something like that when this interview was over.
Jesus.
And so they end the interview and she's like in her dressing room or
Oh, and he
whatever.
opens up with the knife. Din, din, din. That's crazy, dude. That he's got a sense of humor, my guy.
Dude, like, yeah, like who in the fuck has that kind of sense of humor?
Did you ever see Norm Macdonald on The View?
Yes.
They brought him
Yes.
on there to roast him and make fun of him, and they're like telling him that if he didn't stop cracking these Bill Clinton jokes about the Clintons' death count, that he was gonna like never be allowed back on. They were gonna ruin his career, and then eventually they were like, if you don't shut up, we're gonna end this subject, and your career is gonna be ruined. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry. And then they're like, okay, we're gonna move on to another subject, football, and he goes manslaughter. It just legit like got so mad at him, and I just started laughing. I was like, because that's a show. They played a clip of him from SNL, and he's one of my favorite comedians. I should have wore my shirt. I have a Norm Macdonald shirt. But they played a clip of him on SNL where he walked up to a girl who was a waitress bent over reading an order list off a table, and he goes, hey, and he said some smart like toxic masculinity comment, and they played that before they introduced him and invited him on The View. When he sat down, they started saying, so how do you think you're funny, Mr. Funny Man? And they started saying that to him in the interview. And he goes, well, I don't know. I just, like to talk about things and hopefully people like to laugh at my jokes. And they were like, oh, really? And they're like, what do you think about George Bush? You're a big George Bush fan, right? And there's photos of him and George Bush. It's like, oh, I love George Bush. That guy's never done anything wrong. He's like kind of saying it like you tell he's joking. And then he goes, but one president I do would like to meet and I would really like to know some more about is Bill Clinton. Now they're all fans of Bill Clinton on that show. And he goes, I heard he's got a huge death list. And then like you can't say that on air. It's live television. But he flipped the script on them and they got so mad at him. They were literally all about to attack him on that. Like people were putting his hands over his mouth. And I was like, society's all it's all for views and it's bullshit.
Did In 1990 something, Bill Clinton decided to run for office, right?
Yes.
First year as president. And before that, I don't know if you know this or not, little known fact, Bill Clinton used to traffic cocaine out of the Little Rock Airport when he was the governor of Arkansas. And they made a movie about it called Double Crossed.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. That movie, like in the weeks and months before he put in his bid for presidency, was pulled from shelves from places like Hastings and Blockbuster. Like I remember, I had a friend who ran a publication, and he probably still does do some stuff with it. We're not necessarily friends anymore, but his name was Pete Ekberg out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he had a publication and a show on the public access cable channel called The Free American. And he's the guy who kind of opened my eyes to conspiracies and things that were taking place in the world, like that may not be on the up and up. He kind of opened my eyes to the fact that history's bullshit, and there's a lot of liars around us. And excuse me, pardon me. Um, and I completely lost my train of
Why don't
thought.
you hit the bong
All
one
right.
more time and then I'll give
Mm.
us a little bit. Are you a little too high already?
No, I'm not actually, but
Do it.
I
Get
was gonna.
baked. It's your day
Yeah,
off.
I'm about to.
Enjoy
It
it.
is actually. It is my day off, and I'm going to enjoy. Um, and it's not a day off. I
Let's
never
talk
have a day
about
off.
the history of
Oh, Bill
lies.
Clinton. Yeah,
Oh,
so we were talking. Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll go back to the history of. So we were talking about like Bill Clinton, all this stuff like this, and so he and I went out trying to find copies of this movie, Double Crossed. At like back then we had these things that were like video rental stores. You could go and like rent a DVD or a VHS tape. Um, and you would get it for a couple of days for like 99 cents or something. And so we went, sometimes you could even buy the movies off the shelves. So we went around to like every one of these places in Albuquerque, like every video rental place we could. And every one of these places, like none of these places had the movie. And Pete would ask them, like, why don't we have can we get a copy of this movie? And they're like, oh no, they were all bought out like last week. They've all been bought out. They've all been bought out.
somebody
So some
slipped that little thing into Sandy sack. That's what they did.
Yes, sir. Fucking like that's a disappeared part. You're talking about history that's going to disappear. Well, that's history that has disappeared. You
I'm
know,
pretty
and it's like
sure
really
everyone
hard
has
to.
like online forums of like I went down that rabbit hole of like the Clinton. There's a lot on that list, man. And there's a like I don't know how anyone could just be like, no, all these were accidents. One dude who let Epstein into the White House to meet Bill Clinton. I forgot what his name is. His name's last name's Middleton, but I did a clip about this and he took an extension cord, threw it over a tree and wrapped it around his neck and then shot himself in the chest with a shotgun. And he had kids and a wife, and they were all went silent and didn't want to talk about it. And I was like, I don't know what that is. But it's like you can't really say that those are all just like suicides because you look at the list and there's so many. I mean, there's one person that's done exclusively wrong and has not been labeled by history as wrong. That's Harvey Weinstein. And people like actors and actresses were on stage just saying how much they loved Harvey Weinstein. And that guy did the most, like he would, I mean, most Hollywood producers will say, hey, if you give me a little tug, you'll get this script. And sometimes even worse. And they would never follow through with it. He followed through with it though. Like he'd be like, you give me a tug, and I'll make you a star. And he made them stars. But that's just like that's one person in the industry, and there's probably many others out there that are just dirty individuals, horrible individuals, and they haven't been given any type of punishment where any person in that position that isn't them would or be blacklisted by such. Media won't even talk about them because he's somehow built up Hollywood in a sense.
Right. There's a lot of guys like that, man. I mean, I don't know. How did fucking Jeffrey Epstein get in the position that he was in, dude?
Because he
I
hung
mean,
himself.
well, yeah, but how before that? I mean, like, how did he become the world's like largest arms dealer and fucking
He might
human
be
trafficker?
he might be CIA.
He might still be alive.
I don't think he's still alive, but I think he might have been.
Do we have pictures of his body?
Well, let's look at the track record of what our government has done. Our government willingly, from higher authorities, based on documentation that was based in LAPD's archives, and many people that I've interviewed about the subject, about Manson, they they kept getting him out of jail to just go back. I mean, they could have got him on anything, prostitution charges, drug charges, anything like that, but he was let out on higher authority. And that's what the police officers say that were interviewed by the people I interviewed. Brad Schreiber being one of them, John Moretta, who's a history teacher. Now, the thing is, Manson is somehow synonymously attached to the hippie movement, even though he's not a hippie. So I'm not defending Charles Manson. I think he's a
It's
bad
because of
guy.
his long hair and his tattoos, and so they use that as a fucking correlation.
Well, also the drugs, but there there's this idea out there, and I believe in it entirely, is that I think that the world needs monsters. The monsters need to be created for take it back to Skinwalker. We'll wrap it back in. The world needs monsters. It needs a myth. It needs a legend. It needs something that people feel fear, or there's something that needs to be, and it adds extra security measures. And that's when the government, well, that's what the, no, stop. That's what the government comes in and they use this monster created thing and they act as the heroes that destroys this monster. And you can analyze this through any political thing that we've had. Nixon, for the biggest example, Nixon was a bad president, should not have been president. But if you examine Watergate in that whole time period, Nixon is the only name that prevails out of most of it. And they go, well, yeah, Watergate and Nixon, that was Nixon. There's a lot of people that were in establishment that were doing horrible, corrupted shit. and we don't ever hear their names because Nixon went down with the ship while everyone else got on a life preserver. So you see what I'm saying here is like when you really look at like analyze Hollywood, the mob had some small influences into Hollywood, but Hoover had influence into Hollywood. They created a censorship office and they created the blacklist that even if you were suspected of having communist views, you were not allowed to be in films and they would ruin your career. They would ruin your life. That's
But so
Hoover.
now how did we get completely from the switch 180 degrees from that then to where like unless you have communist views, they're gonna ruin your life.
That's the progressive movement.
And that took place in 50 fucking years, man. And not just I mean, that's progression. You're right, dude. Progressive is progressive for a reason. And that I mean, like, damn, dude, like
Well, they're
we
even
went from
teaching
complete polar
communism
op
on they're teaching communism on college campuses. Kids that want to be communists. And it's like I think we have like a really distorted view because we had communism had been labeled so much like the word terrorism is labeled today that people went into it and they might have been in some people's viewpoint brainwashed by communism. In my purpose, I just don't think any of it works. I think the only way that we like the way that I mean somewhat we definitely have conditions we can fix, but capitalism I think is works just not in the way that we turned it into this thing. I think the competitive marketplace was supposed to be like that, but we somehow allowed elite groups to form in these competitive marketplaces and made it damn near impossible for anyone to be an entrepreneur.
well, there's no competitive marketplace anymore. That's the thing, because you can't be an entrepreneur to create competition because of conglomerates like Walmart that are so toxic to the fucking economic system. But again, we allowed those places.
You're kind of just repeating what I said, but okay.
Absolutely no. It just I'm trying to put it in layman's terms, so that anybody out there can and to reiterate what you say, of course, is just reinforcing it. So, but yeah, exactly. We have allowed these things to take place, and who do we have to blame? Like we want to blame. We need a monster to blame. That's why I said scapegoat a while ago. But I wasn't saying like scapegoat in the traditional form. I'm saying like the reason why we have Skinwalker is because something happened and they couldn't explain it to this person. So then they go, oh, the curse of Skinwalker did it. Maybe the Skinwalker is real. I don't know. There's a lot of people out here who are fucking terrified of that word. I mean, you can say that word in places, dude, and people will fucking make the sign of the cross. People will, like
Give me their email.
taken seriously out here. And I
Get,
don't, I mean, these are
write my email down and just hand it to them.
to people.
I need to talk to these people.
um, a lot of these people, like, they won't say the name, dude. They won't talk to you about it. You say it around them and they're just like, they'll leave the room. They'll get up and go. They don't want to talk about it. It's taken very, very seriously out here. I don't have any, well, okay. I started to tell you, I went on one hunting trip when I was like 17 years old. I was in New Mexico. We went to northern New Mexico up by, I want to say Farmington. It's been 30 years. So this memory sticks out in my head, but it's a little bit fuzzy because it's been 3 decades since it happened.
30 years.
We were supposed to meet a man who was going to show us where we could hunt and where we couldn't, because a lot of that area is reservation also, and you have to be real careful. Like you have to know it's not just back in those days. We didn't have things like GPS and Google Maps and shit like that to tell us how to.
And before we met that man, 1 week later, he was on TV trying on a white glove that did not fit.
No. The man never showed up, so we didn't go on a hunting trip. But we did encounter a man who was field dressing a deer that he had hit on the side of the road, or on the road. He was traveling, he had hit a deer and killed it. He had pulled over and was field dressing it to preserve the meat, like on the spot on the side of the road. And somehow inside of this animal, there was part of a flannel shirt. I mean, that stuck out in my head.
He ate the shirt.
I think that the Native American man who was supposed to meet us may have been a skinwalker. I feel like he was that deer who had been hit
Jesus
on the
Christ.
side of the road.
Put the bong down, you
dude.
fucking
No,
hippie.
I mean, that's something that's always entered my
they
mind.
were right. Helter
happened.
Skelter's real. They got to lock all you people up.
How did the fucking flannel shirt end up inside of the deer?
He might have ate it.
Deers don't eat flannel shirts.
If you're driving, you don't know.
Dude, come on now.
Sometimes they mistake things.
Yeah, they don't mistake a flannel shirt.
I bet you
It's
$20
like a flannel.
if I drop you in the middle of the woods.
Do you know how big a
Hold
flannel
on.
shirt
If I
is?
drop you in the middle of the woods for a week and I give you nothing but cookies shaped in the form of a dick, and I tell you all you can eat is this bag of dicks, you're gonna say no. And then on the seventh day, when you're dying of starvation, you're gonna eat it. And then I'm gonna be able to say this to you: you ate a bag of dicks. Then you have to rationalize to every single person that I might say that to you around that, oh, it's not an actual bag, it was cookies in the shape. And you have to live the rest of your life. So now knowing that, would you eat that bag of dicks? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Sorry. I've been thinking about that bit in my head. I was like, there's a bit there. Someone could figure it out.
Deers don't eat flannel shirts. You know how big a fucking flannel shirt is? Deers don't
They ate
eat.
the whole shirt or a piece of it.
Yeah, I guess I don't.
Did he
I
even
saw a
chew?
part of the shirt there,
Yeah, it might have been a piece of it.
but I think it was the entire shirt. I don't know. Okay,
If
like
it's
I was
one of those $5 from Walmart, they might have some of them smell like.
something we kind of stopped to stay on the side of the road. You know, like, hey, what are you doing here, man? Do you need help? And he's like, no, I'm field dressing a deer that I hit. And so, you know, like I said, I'm 17. You know, and I was with a bunch of like adult ass men, like going on a hunting trip. So it's just to me, it was weird.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's people out there that smoke a pack of cigarettes a day, and some people find that weird. You shouldn't find a dude who's randomly field dressing a deer that he hit weird because that just might be his lifestyle. It's so normal to him.
No, I didn't find that weird. I found
Doesn't
the
mean I'm
fact
going
that
to
the
ask him a question, though. I'm sure as hell not going to ask if he's all right and needs help. I'm going to be like driving off just in case that guy turns out to be a murderer.
you know, it's a rural area. It's 1994.
There's children around here.
We're not worried about that necessarily. You know, we just seen a vehicle pull over on the side of the road, and so we're like, oh, okay, let's
Now, if
stop.
he popped open his grill and started cooking the deer right there, I'd be like, hey, man, you need some help real quick. Let me get some of that.
Again, I wasn't driving. I don't know. I was just a passenger in a car. You know, I don't know what these guys are thinking when they pull over and ask you know, do you need help with whatever?
You
Blah,
know I
blah.
work at
And
a
I think the
gym, right?
car, obviously the truck had to like must have looked wrecked, right? Because he hit a deer. So his truck probably had damage to it. And I think that's why the driver pulled over and was like, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, no, I hit this deer field dressing it. And I just remember like looking down and seeing like part of this flannel shirt sticking out of the inside of this deer, like a sleeve of a flannel shirt. Like, and I'm like, how did that get inside of the deer with like all these guts and shit? And like, why isn't it in the stomach? If he had eaten this fucking, like, he wasn't cutting open the stomach, he's removing the guts from the deer so it doesn't taint the meat. Something doesn't, you know, if something's busted open in there from the impact, he's got to get the, you know, the guts and shit out right away.
What you doing over there, man? Making a
Yeah,
necklace?
so I look over, you know, I just like this. It looks like a flannel sleeve, so seriously, like wrapped up in the guts of this deer. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how did a flannel shirt get inside this deer? How did it get in there?
Might have ate it.
Well, why wasn't it in his stomach?
I don't know. Dude might have cut
It's
it, and
just
then you
in
might have
the
just been coming at a
maybe
weird
maybe so
process.
maybe so maybe you know I may have come in at a weird spot like maybe the stomach.
I want to know what detergent that guy uses on his clothes to make that deer so hungry it ate a flannel shirt.
I want to know where the fucking guide was supposed to show up to fucking take us hunting that never
Probably hit
showed up.
his bong a little bit too hard too, and forgot he had shit to do.
Yeah, you know, I think that we were.
Time
I
gets
think that was my.
displaced.
I think that was my first experience with potentially a
You
skinwalker.
know, he was watching some type of Clinton kill list video. He got the last one at the DVD spot, and he was like, "Oh damn, I had a tour I had to do a
Double
little while
crossed, huh?
ago."
He was all I was watching double crossed, out buying them all up.
You give him a phone call. Hey man, we were supposed to meet for this tour. Where were you? Oh man, you missed it, dude. They got OJ in here trying on a white glove. I couldn't leave the
Uh,
couch. Hung up
I
the
was
thing.
eating. All I could do was eat this bag of dicks and watch in
Yeah,
horror.
I know. Wait, what'd you say? No, I was gonna say I work at a gym. You know that. Somehow I don't know why, but random people just bring me in stuff, and it's based on the conversations I've had. You gotta understand, I've been up basically all night, and so I don't know what I say sometimes. And this guy brought in a giant slab of deer meat and just gave it to me. He's like, "Gotcha, man," and walked away. And I was like, "What the fuck did I say to him?" It's like I have no clue, but thank you.
That's funny. Did you eat it?
It's in my freezer. Gonna make burgers.
Yeah, mix it. Well, mix it with some ground beef.
I'm on a new diet right
Deer's
now. 1 egg a day. That's it.
what? That's not a diet.
It's working for me, my man.
You're gonna die.
I'm feeling fantastic.
One egg a day?
One
What in
egg a
the
day.
hell? Are you gonna become one of those guys who only eats air?
I'm gonna wait till I can hit the level of Gandhi
Mhm.
and then start shaving my head and just preaching to people.
Start now, bro. Just go for it.
I
Boom.
thought about it. I don't think I can rock bald. That's a very significant look.
Okay, so if you can't rock bald, guess what? They make a hat. You can rock a hat.
I can't rock a hat.
You can rock a hat.
I've tried on
I'm
the
looking at it
show.
right now. Your hair almost looks like a fucking hat right now. Like the brim of a hat right there. I could totally picture you in a hat right now. You look good. You look fine. You look like Tom Holland, bro. You could fucking wear a fucking brown bag over your fucking head and look great. It'd look better if you wore a brown bag over your head because you look like Tom Holland.
Mhm.
Sorry. Anyway, sorry, Tom. No, just kidding. But yeah, no, I mean you could wear anything you want, look great, dude. Come on now.
Astral. Let's talk about astral signs. Are you a horoscope guy?
I was born on the cusp of Aries and Pisces.
I'm gonna throw the fuck up right now. I didn't know this was actually. I was just hoping you were gonna laugh and say, "No, I'm not interested in that."
I don't know anything else about it, but I
That's
was
it.
born on the cusp of Aries and Pisces. I do
Oh,
know that
accurate.
I do know that the astral signs in the sky run opposite of the way they do for like so Taurus was in the sky before Aries, and then Aries was in the sky before Pisces, and Pisces but like the way it works on the calendar is opposite. So I don't know why that happened.
I just know people started changing it to their dating profile to where they ask you what your sign is before, and if you say the wrong sign, they go, "Okay, I can't." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm actually not that. I was kidding. I'm this." And they're like, "Well, I can't do that either." And I'm like, "Ha, got you again. I'm actually this sign, and I can't do that one either." And I'm like, "Well, what do you think I am? I think you're actually this." "Oh, that is what I am." "Oh, really? Then we can date." "Oh, I was just kidding. I'm not that either, you fucking nut job."
So there's supposed to be allegedly there's a 13th
I don't care.
astrological sign
I
instead
don't
of
care.
12.
Unless there's a new planet or they're bringing Pluto back, I'm not worried about it.
Oh, there's new planets. They're everywhere.
Exoplanets,
Hmm.
ones we can live on.
Allegedly.
I really would like to discover a haunted like Chuck E. Cheese where all those animatronics are alive.
Oh,
Sounds like fun. They've been playing so many movies about it. I can't stop thinking about it.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, it was all right. It
Mm.
wasn't like the best, but
Yeah. It has potential. I haven't seen it, but I figured it had some sort of potential. I'm gonna wait till it's like available to rent for $5 because I can't justify spending more than five
they
dollars
had
on
a
a fucking
movie that
movie.
was what was it? Empire of the Flower Moon or something like that. That was out in theaters with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Hmm. I
Three
want to see that.
hours and 29 minutes.
That's too long to sit through anything.
That's what I said. You could travel from Maryland to Baltimore. That's a 3 hour drive. Then stop at an Olive Garden and get some breadsticks and whatever entree you want. Spaghetti with white sauce.
Right.
I was like, well, why would you sit in a movie? I would have to be hammered in that movie to watch it.
Even then, fuck, man. Like I couldn't hardly sit through Lord of the Rings, dude. And I wanted to see that shit back in the day. And
Eventually your leg just goes to sleep.
uh eventually I just go to sleep. I'm like, fuck it, I'm comfortable, laid back, especially with like the new movie theaters.
Do you know they're making a Jonestown movie?
Oh man, that's finally that's
I'm
fucking
ex
cool.
but I think they're making it based on like what we actually know now that Jonestown wasn't a mass suicide, it was a mass murder.
Murder. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. I thought that many, many years ago. I had no way of proving it, no way of like really researching that deep into it. So
Well, there's plenty of research out there.
yeah.
I mean, there were kids at that place, so I don't think kids are
Yeah,
going to
there's plenty
commit
of research
suicide.
on dinosaurs too, but allegedly they're not dinosaurs. Dinosaur means terrible lizard, and lizards don't have feathers, so I don't know, man.
Well,
And dude, everything is wrong. Everything we know is wrong. Like I don't know, research, whatever. It's all fucking based on opinion. Who funded that research? Who funded? Where did the money come from that paid for the research? In the
I don't,
1960s, Bear aspirin.
hold on. I know you've said this before too, but
Yeah, fuck these guys.
instead of saying that everything's a lie, why don't you just start accepting what they're spouting as fact as an opinion? They've based research on the limited scope that they probably analyzed it through. Like to me, like I know, like I have a lot of friends that are just like are historians, and then I have friends that are like yourself that are researchers that go online and come across a lot of stuff that I learned about. I didn't even know that there were cockroaches in coffee.
Right.
There's sometimes because it's when you're harvesting food, it's the FDA has allowed a certain amount. Yeah. Which is still, that's not good, you know, but because like then they can just base whatever they want off of how much is a little. Well, whatever the FDA says is a little. Okay. So they can just move that sliding scale depending on whatever they consider a little. But my whole thing is instead of like saying that this is wrong or this is inaccurate or this says this and this says that, start living in the world where there's multiple different studies and everyone has their own bias influenced into it. Now you're only hoping that the information that we run off of is the ones that is probably less influenced and people chose the higher route. It's like when you get into the climate subject, when you get into all these, there are people that have somehow put their own political bias into it. And then when people see a different side of the data, they go, you're fucking lying. And then it becomes this giant feud that we're basically now fucking ourselves out of existence. So it's like, to me, I just look at everything whenever someone tells me something, people go, well, how can you listen to so many people with so many different viewpoints? I just go, because I accept it as that's their opinion, that's their perspective based on the things that they've seen. Doesn't mean they're a liar. It just means they've seen data. Like the JFK assassination. Let's hop into that real quick. Mob did it, CIA did it, whoever did it. All of it's weighted because there's so much research in so many different areas that could support each individual theory. Do I care about who pulled the trigger? I would like to know the answer, but I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure out something that we may never figure out. What I can say, though, is that you can really back up a lot of these people's claims. Even Johnson did it, which I fucking hate talking about that one. But you can see that there's a lot of connections, a lot of things
Who's
going on.
speaking of this? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to say this before. I want to ask this question since you're the number one JFK researcher in the world right now.
No,
Who's the
don't
high
give me
profile
that.
guy who just, oh, dude, well, don't
Oh,
bullshit me about
Kissinger.
it.
Kissinger.
Who's the guy, he's a high profile guy who just turned around and said that the fucking Secret Service man driving shot JFK in the
Oh,
face?
whoa. I don't know about the guy who said that. There's not anybody who's made that claim in a long
Dude,
time, but
that's happening like right now, like all over. I've been seeing that recently, bro.
Google that shit.
Like recently on like social media. Yeah, it was like, and I thought it was somehow connected to you, man. I thought like this dude may have been somebody that you were talking to or something, man, because they were like, yeah, this dude, the driver is the guy who shot him. And he's like, I've known this for fucking 40, 50, 60, 70 years, however long it's been since JFK's been shot. He's like, but I never said anything about it. He's like, but yeah. So that's the new thing that's going on that I hear.
Nah, I don't think you're right. I think it's yeah, it's still the other guy. Paul Landis is his name. It's the Secret Service agent who came out probably a month ago, maybe a little bit over a month ago. And he was so his side technically falls in the conspiracy realm still. So he's still against the official narrative, but it's weird how the media has picked up on it so much. The media is like they've really never accepted or never bothered to broadcast any opinions that were against the official narrative. The only time you can really trace it back is in 1975, 1976, maybe, when Geraldo Rivera, that guy from CNN with the giant mustache, first played the Zapruder film on national television in front of everybody. That was the first time everyone saw Kennedy's head go back and to the left. And that's when a lot of public doubt started. I think it was up to like 70 something percent that people believed that Oswald did not act alone. But no, it's Paul Landis. He said that he found a bullet perfectly intact, which is the magic bullet that was found on that stretcher that went through two people and created 7 wounds, the single bullet theory, this thing that was created. And he said he was the one who placed it on the stretcher. Both sides, conspiracy and non-conspiracy, do not buy it at all because, I mean, he's made the claim before. He said it back in 98. It's not brand new. Everyone's saying it's brand new. Media's reporting on it like brand new claim that just came out. No, he said it in the past. He just never went this public about it. But he said he placed a bullet there. So the main thing you got to think is you're telling me as a Secret Service agent, you had evidence, put it in your pocket, walked over and placed it on a stretcher and didn't fucking tell anybody until 30 years later. Fuck's wrong with you? That's a Secret Service problem. The real things you can point out about the case that are what I would call proven. The Secret Service, and there's photos of it. You can check my YouTube. I have all these shorts loaded up there. There is the Secret Service limousine being cleaned out with a bucket. They put brain matter, they put bone, they put bullet fragments all in that bucket. and that all those fragments and all that stuff was not submitted into evidence. That is a problem. That is a Secret Service were out drinking the night before up until wee hours of the morning. Paul Landis, the guy we were just talking about who placed that magic bullet, was out till 5 a.m. at the Cellar, which was like a place to get drink Everclear alcohol and all this type of shit. So a lot of those guys were not up to par of duty and nobody lost their job. So there's a lot of things in the Kennedy case that I wouldn't call conspiracy that are true. So I mean, if you have more questions, let me answer some questions. I'll do this for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not a top researcher. Don't give me that. I'm just an average citizen looking into the thing.
Well, I mean, you have managed to do things in the field that nobody has ever managed to do before, like get people from opposite sides of the aisle to sit down and talk to each other um, in meetings on your podcast. So that's, I mean, that's why I'm going to at with that. But so, um, dude, to me, I don't know if I have questions. I do have questions. I have a million questions. I want to know where JFK's brain is and what
Man, we don't
the
know where
fucking
that is.
yeah to tie in with Robert Kennedy and why he had possession of it at some point or
Well, okay. So that
access
that
to it.
that I have a clip of. The family, I
Mhm.
think you probably saw it on my Instagram. The family did have um access to the materials. A lot of it was put in a chest. Three autopsy doctors, Dr. James Humes, Dr. Boswell, and Dr. Pierre Fink, have to sign off on a sheet of what's being inserted into this chest. And this chest was eventually given into the Kennedy family. We don't really know the specifics of how it got there. The chain of custody, which was investigated, is very skimp. They have dates and periods for a couple of years with it, but there was a meeting being taken place. All these doctors signed off that the chest had the brain in it, had microscopic slides of the chest, and had a bunch of documentation from x-rays and autopsy photographs and things of that sort. They signed off saying that that was in the chest. Okay. That chest gets transferred from Berkeley, Kennedy's physician, to RFK, to another person who's an assistant who meets somebody, gives it to an agent, and then it arrives at the National Archives in around 1966. Oh, no, yeah, 1966. So 3 years after Kennedy's killed. They open it up, nothing's in there. So did these doctors lie and say that they signed off and put it in there? I don't know. Or did somebody take out the stuff all around those massive trips that started going through? We don't know. So that's the thing. Kennedy's brain's missing, the thing that would show a lot of differences of opinion. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this case that just you're probably never going to get an answer to unless someone comes forward, but everybody's dying.
Yeah, another piece of lost history. So what kind of information would they be hoping to find through the analysis of Kennedy's brain? I mean, if he was shot in the head by the caliber of weapon that he was shot in the head with, wouldn't that have like liquefied most of the fucking brain to begin with?
Well, it would explode the whole right side of his head like we all saw in the Zapruder film.
Hmm.
But if
So how
you
much brain was left, and then what would they be hoping to find?
That's the thing. In the autopsy, there was a perfectly preserved brain on the table, and they said Kennedy's brain weighed 1,500 grams, which is an above average weight for a normal brain. So you're telling me that if a brain gets shot, you're going to lose matter, not add it on.
Right.
That's the thing why the brain's missing, because it would tell you that there was a front shot. Depending on which way the brain was blown out, it would just depict and show you. When they had a brain in there, Kennedy's brain would have been gray, just like the brain that was photographed, but it wouldn't have been intact. The reason a lot of people suspect conspiracy is Bethesda Naval Medical Hospital has a lot like an autopsy section where they do it with students. They have training for students doing autopsies and taking out brains of cadavers. The perfectly intact brain could have been somebody else's brain. You soak it in formaldehyde for up to a couple days so it gets this grayish form and you can actually grab it and not have to worry about slipping and all this.
Right.
But like there's a casket game that happens with the caskets when they're being delivered based on the reports of Seibert and O'Neill. There are two FBI agents who were also live at the autopsy when it was happening. Everyone, like there was three different times a casket was dropped off and everyone thought they were carrying Kennedy, but only one person was. So that could be to stop the press. It doesn't have to be conspiracy at all. But the doctors said they opened up the casket of one of them, Kennedy was in there butt naked with his head wrapped. So why is his head wrapped? They took it off, and that's when someone made the statement, and he later retracted it, but said that there was pre-autopsy to Kennedy before it arrived at the Naval Hospital. And I mean, to his head. So hold on. when he cut the brain, he cut a line and he pull there's a photo of it. Kennedy's scalp's all pulled. It's pulled from the back forward, so his brain can come out. They said the brain just plopped right out. Now, the issue with that is your brain is attached to nerves.
Yeah, and
So
yeah.
the reason why, if you crack your skull or anything like that, your brain's not just going to pour out on the thing. It's because it's connected in there by a stem and everything like that. So that means someone did something to his head to disconnect the thing. And I mean, it like I said, that's the sketchiest part too, because to be able to validate any of these claims instead of just using kind of common sense a little bit or any statements that the doctors said. I mean, Kennedy's that casket was eventually dropped in the ocean under orders of Robert Kennedy. There's a lot of stuff that happened. The medical autopsy notes, the draft of them were burned in a fireplace by Dr. James Humes, and possibly Pierre Fink's notes, because all those notes went missing. So there's a lot of stuff with the autopsy that's really messed up that would point at the government. But
And why would any of that
shooter-wise,
stuff even happen? Like, you know what I mean? How does that happen? How does NASA tape over the fucking moon landing to and how does
why
how
not?
does fucking right? How does fucking the documents of the fucking autopsy, the morticians who were conducting the autopsy, how did those get fucking cremated along
Not
with
not morticians. What they was they were pathologists, but they were only pathologists for car accidents and things like that. They were not qualified. That's why Pierre Fink came into the autopsy. He was the only one who had done surgical autopsies, a forensic pathologist, to be able to detect which way gunshot wounds went. But he hadn't done a autopsy in like a couple of years. So that was his first one in a long time, but they called him there to verify. Now, one thing that is suspicious and depicted in Oliver Stone's film, there is an unnamed general, and I think everyone thinks it's Curtis LeMay. It was depicted as Dr. Feelgood or Dr. Strangelove in the movie, where he was smoking a cigar at Kennedy's autopsy, and he was telling people not to touch that, not to do that. The people that were doing the autopsy of Kennedy were not allowed to touch certain parts of Kennedy's body. And the big kind of rebuttal to that is the Kennedy's family's wishes did not want the body being, and they blamed the Catholic stuff, which is like, I mean, I guess, but you can't just hide behind a religion wall. We do that with everything. We did that with Mark Chapman and John Lennon. These priests that were all coming there trying to demonize Mark Chapman. Well, it turns out one of the goddamn doctors that visited Mark Chapman was a MK Ultra doctor, Milton Klein. And that's where this idea of a little people kingdom that Mark Chapman had in his head came from. And then this Mark Chapman states that in his cell floor, he saw the battle of little people kingdoms of the devil and the angels. And at the ending, the angel general, they all won. And the angel general popped into his hand. He put it up to his ear. And the angel general said, plead guilty. So none of the evidence of two shooters at John Lennon's assassination could come out because Mark Chapman just pleaded guilty. So is it suspicious that an MK Ultra visited or MK Ultra doctor visited Mark Chapman? No. But is it suspicious that an MK Ultra doctor visited Jack Ruby? No. Is it suspicious that an MK Ultra doctor visited Charles Manson? No.
well, that one's a little suspicious.
Yeah, they're all suspicious, dude.
I know,
Even the
dude.
Sirhan one was an MK Ultra doctor that visited him.
Yeah, dude, that's to me, it's mind-boggling. Okay, so here's a
Everyone needs
weird
a devil, man. They need a devil to burn.
a
You got to have
monster,
that
dude.
monster.
Gotta have that monster,
It's
bro.
fun. It's fun to see that stuff. And I hate being like, look, I'm not profiting off of conspiracy, so I could talk about it. But when you really see the amount of documentation and stuff like that, it's like there's a real possibility that every belief that we might have in that could be every major tragedy in history could have been created for a purpose. And that purpose was not what we were told initially. It was only to bring bigger security. And like there's a documentary on Netflix you can watch, Wormwood. It's about Frank Olson's death. And the CIA has admitted to dosing him with LSD and him committing suicide. They paid the family millions of dollars because it was investigated multiple times to say it was the CIA's fault. And the weird part about his death that has come out in the past like 10, 15 years was that it looked like he was beaten in the head with a pipe. He fell from a 6 or 8 story, he jumped out an 8 story window, which was the official story. The later story from the CIA admitted that he committed suicide, but then someone said that he was thrown out of a window and he landed feet first, but his head was bashed in like someone beat him in with a bat. So You know what I'm saying? There's like that's a documentary on Netflix, really, really good. But there's a lot of like corruption stuff like this. So just be happy you're meeting Santa Claus in fucking
You
Walmart
know,
and not
right?
meeting some
Instead of
CIA
Richard
guy.
Doty.
Yeah,
Right. Do you know the name Richard Doty?
I've heard it.
See, what you were just talking about reminded me. So Richard Doty worked for the Office of Special Intelligence out of Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico during the 90s. And there was a guy who ran an aerospace design company up by Sandia National Labs up on the east side of Albuquerque by the base of Sandia Mountains, apparently. He had a home up there and his businesses were up there. And I used to live in that area, so this is a particular interest to me. In fact, I lived in the neighborhood where this took place. So this guy um, saw UFOs over Kirtland Air Force Base, and he contacted the Air Force Base, and they put him in contact with this guy, Richard Doty. Richard Doty then becomes quote unquote friends with this gentleman who owned the business. I can't remember the gentleman's name who owned the business. I wish I could. But Richard Doty then admits now to having fed this man misinformation to the point of driving him insane and having him locked up in a mental institution. It caused him to be locked up in a mental institution where he later committed suicide. And so the whole story you were just talking about sounds very reminiscent of that sort of thing, because I guess like the guy jumped out of a fucking window in a mental institution. How did he even get access to a fucking window that wasn't barred or
Look
whatever, right?
look at Hemingway. If you know
Mm-hmm.
the writer Hemingway, he visited Cuba for a little while and actually was having pro Castro views. And the he started getting like super paranoid that the FBI was spying on him, and he was telling people that the FBI is watching him, and he was being like everyone said he went crazy. Well, he eventually got put into a mental asylum, and they gave him electroconvulsive therapy. And when he went out, he couldn't write anymore. He became like an alcoholic, couldn't write. He said that he lost it after the electroconvulsive therapy. Well, he went back in to do the electroconvulsive therapy again to try and fix it, what they did to him didn't work, and he shot himself. Well, if you look up Hemingway and the FBI has a 30, it's over 100 documents per part, but there's 30 parts on them. They were watching him, they were surveilling him. So he was right. And that has come out as like he was being watched by the FBI. They were surveilling him and going through his mail and making him seem a little bit crazy. And he eventually killed himself, all because he had communist views.
So, okay, there was the guy that's fucking like so many little things like this remind me of things. There was the guy in Texas, right? The Navy guy, the Navy officer who said that the CIA was attacking him from, he was in a hotel and they ran in another room and they were attacking him with sonic weapons and putting thoughts in his head and making, he went out and killed a bunch of people because of this shit. Um, and then like immediately after that happened, then there was like a story that broke where in Cuba and maybe in China, diplomats were being pulled from those locations and brought back home with evidence of microwave attacks being used on them um, at their embassies. Things like burns on their inner ears and stuff that only can be caused by like high-powered sonic weapons or microwave weapons. Um, and so I really believe that that guy who was the Navy guy, I think that he was being fucked with by the CIA, man. I think that the CIA put those thoughts in his head and caused him to kill fucking me. Like whenever he said that he was being fucking manipulated electronically by the CIA, I believe that shit, man. Because like it's just like so much evidence has come out since that happened of these types of attacks happening, but like by foreign agents in other countries. And if foreign agents are using it on our guys, I mean, we're using it on other people. Like you damn well know that. Um,
It doesn't scare me, that type of stuff. What does scare me is the fact that people will like refuse to even engage in conversation about it. Like the person who might be speaking it might be a nut job. And it's just like, if anything, listen to it and then search it up or try and find out where this person gets their sources. Like, that's the one thing for me. I don't have a conspiracy. Like, I don't like the Skinwalker talks. I just think it's fucking stupid when there's like real problems out there. But I like listening to people talk about it. I like hearing somebody's perspective on it. I like to engage in conversation about it. I would never tell someone they don't exist, even though in my belief they don't. But if someone is like yourself, if you believe in Skinwalkers, tell me all about it. But the thing we do in society now is we just shut down. And I've talked to enough people to tell you that everyone has built their perspective, and it's not just built on a pillar of bullshit. It's built in some way that they view the world. And if you can't look, I mean, dude, think about how many episodes I've done.
Hmm.
Think how
Oh
many
yeah,
people I've
thousands, dude.
talked
A
to.
couple of thousand now.
People that I mean I would not agree with on certain things, but it only enhances your understanding that you do not know every single thing. So to tell someone that they're wrong is the worst thing you can do. I'm so much of an easygoing guy now when it comes to any subject matter. I can float in a conversation with anybody. But it's just like whenever someone says something to me, in my viewpoint, I go, okay, I'm not even going to bring up the other side. I'm just going to go, yeah, I get it because I've seen that side too. And that side's real as well. If you can get these people to sit down and have these conversations like we normally should be doing, we wouldn't be having all this fuckery go on. And none of this would be happening.
Right, right. There's
And then I
phenomenons
get
that
throat
occur.
chopped. It's going to happen. I'm going to be walking out of my shower, and then you're going to see an autopsy done. That says you died. Like Jim Cothey, the guy who investigated Jack Ruby's apartment the night that he shot Oswald, he eventually died, and his official cause of death was throat chop while stepping out of his shower. Like, that's someone put that on an autopsy report.
Right.
Who broke into his
That's
apartment? Was that ever investigated? No.
no, no. Who throat chopped him? Who
Exactly.
knows? But yeah,
That's
he
what's
did. But
crazy. How dare they
mhm.
do that? Oh, he's stepping out of the shower. Get him with his pants down, you fucking piece of shit.
Dude, people are fucked up, dude. The things that they will do to other people, say to other people, treat the way we treat other people, it's just ridiculous, dude. There's like no,
Sam
I don't know,
Giancana's death
man.
is pretty suspicious too.
Dude, there's a
Sam
lot of people like that.
Sam Giancana was a mob boss of Chicago. And this is like, it's not even controversial, but everyone thinks what happened was Sam Giancana was being monitored when he returned back to this country. Basically, the way that the mob, if you look up like mob history, mob people, like historians in the mob sector will tell you it was because he pissed off the crime family. But if you look at like his involvement and kind of speculation about like maybe the Kennedy stuff, you start looking at the government a little bit. So Sam Giancana got deported to not even his original country. He got deported to like Mexico. Apparently went to Mexico to the mob size to escape from the mob because the mob found out he had a bunch of money from casinos that he was not giving up because he said it was out of his casinos and that he shouldn't have to donate to the crime family. So the crime family eventually kicked him out. He was in Mexico for a couple of years, making a bunch of money down there, and he decides to come back to his country. He decides to meet with one of the main mob bosses to make amends to the family so he can get put back into the family. And he's at his house. FBI is watching his house. They get a call for something, and the guy's agents on post decide to just leave. And Sam Giancana was shot point blank in his face 7 times with a .22 caliber bullet. It's 7 or 5. The accounts vary. But the reason why it's suspicious is not only because he was shot in the face fucking however many times. That could be a mob hit, dude. That seems like it's a someone had to know him is the thing. And the reason why they said that was because he was making dinner and he was making dinner with peppers. Now you sit there and go, what's suspicious about him eating dinner with peppers? He had a stomach ulcer to where he was not supposed to eat spicy foods. And everyone suspects that it's a very personal thing to shoot somebody in the face that many times. That he invited someone over to dinner and was making this meal with the peppers for the person. And it's been speculation that it was Bebe Barboza or it was these names. Everyone thought Johnny Rosselli for the longest time, but Johnny Rosselli, I think he died later. He was chopped up and thrown in a barrel. And they found him 10 days later after he went missing. The official cause of death, I think, states that he died of asphyxiation. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure he died of his fucking arms and legs being dismembered and thrown into a barrel. I don't think the asphyxiation fucking did it. But that was because he was testifying before the church committee. Because they asked him about his involvement in the assassination of JFK, and he bullshitted them for a couple of times. He was invited in there 3 times. I think the next time he was getting called in is the time that he got killed before it happened. But eventually he told him, he's like, hey, if I talk, they're going to kill me. That's in the transcripts. They're going to get rid of me. It's going to happen. And I fear for my safety. They kept trying to get him to talk. He kept saying, I fear for my safety. His lawyer said he fears for his safety. Then when he gets called again, that's when they found him dead. And that's when the speculation of they started interviewing his lawyer, asking him what was going on. He said he feared for his safety because the mob thought he ratted. And the CIA is not going to chop you up and throw you in a barrel. But to me, that's like, I don't even care if the mob did it. It's just like, I find that fascinating. But nobody in the community wants to talk about it if it doesn't support their theory. But I'm like, don't you want to know about all the historical deaths like John Dillinger and all these people? I mean, the guy who killed John Dillinger and got the credit for it was supposed to be Hoover, right? Well, it was another agent. That guy went off into stardom. Well, it pissed off J. Edgar Hoover so much, he blacklisted that guy from the FBI. The guy had to leave the FBI, start up his own private organization, a detective agency. Didn't take off at all. He ended up shooting himself. That was Hoover. Made that guy's life miserable because he got the credit for killing John Dillinger. So it's like you see all these, and it's just like, man, history's fucking fascinating. I'm over here like a goddamn kid ignoring the people that are selling out Boy Scout cookies in the front of Walmart. I'm like, fuck no, not going to make eye contact with you. That's how you make the sale.
Right. Exactly. I have a question. Um, there are
Good,
as
because I just
many,
ranted for like 20 minutes.
dude, you did. No, it's just great. It's great though. I learned a lot just now. Um, there are as many, according to the Secret Service, there are as many as 8 or possibly more body doubles for Joe Biden.
Why the fuck you asked me that question? I don't know.
No, this is a statement I'm making. When did that program start? Is there a possibility that the man they said was JFK wasn't even JFK? Could they
That
have
was
shot?
that was JFK,
Oh,
100%.
was it? Are we
Yeah,
sure?
that was 100% JFK. Yeah, you look at the
How,
autopsy photos of JFK. It's been proven
but
they
if
didn't
but
have
if he
they.
had doubles though, if they
I
had,
don't think Biden has doubles either. I don't believe that
oh
either.
no, they say that that's an openly
They
admitted thing because
then
what
they
they do is
wouldn't.
they put these body doubles in different vehicles and send them out so that he can't be like they can't figure out which one is the real president. There's a 1 in 8 chance that he could be assassinated if somebody was
Then they
trying
would
to
just
assassinate
film the
him.
body double walking up the airplane stairs or walking into the White House and not
And
missing the
so I
front
think
door by
sometimes they
50 feet.
do.
Oh,
I think sometimes they do. That's the point that I'm making. See, is like
maybe.
when we see the body, like they have these body doubles, so there's a chance that like maybe the guy that we see on these like why things always seem scripted or why things seem weird and like is because maybe it's not even the same guy. If we're looking at 8 people who are all supposed to be close enough to Joe
JFK
Biden,
was killed in Dallas in 1963. It's verifiably proven. It's a horrible tragedy. RFK Jr. lost his uncle and his dad. Somebody died, man. People lost family. Okay. So understand that.
absolutely no, I get that. I'm curious, when did this program start?
Only thing that's suspicious about the Secret Service, besides all the bullshit I told you earlier, is the alleged Secret Service agent on the knoll that has not been identified. There was
So
no
that's
Secret
that's
Service
that's the
agent
man
on
on
the
the grassy
knoll.
knoll.
Nobody, all the Secret Service agents have said that there was nobody in our motorcade that was on that knoll. But many witnesses and many police officers in their report said that a man up there flashed a Secret Service agent badge and said he was identified himself as a Secret Service agent. Now, who was in charge of printing the credentials for each of those trips the Secret Service took? It was the CIA. Could it be possible? Like I told you, I think last time we talked, that my theory was that in the CIA's charter, it says they can offer CIA agents to the Secret Service to extra protection on Kennedy's detail. So could that be a secret or a CIA agent using Secret Service credentials? I don't know. Or someone gave out credentials, but that man was not apprehended. Man was not identified, and he's been an alleged mystery ever since. If you believe the shots came from the knoll, what I like is when they replaced the Dealey Plaza fence. People wrote on it with Sharpie. One person wrote "The trees saw everything," which I think is just awesome. And then another person wrote "Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys." And I was like, yeah, fucking 4 or 5 of them are dead, all in strange. One was snowboarding and skiing, and he broke his neck and died. That might not be suspicious, but there's a lot of weird things about not being able to find his body and stuff for however many days.
There seems to be a lot of that type of stuff that involve a lot of people too, because I mentioned this guy to you before, Schneider. He was allegedly part of the Delta Force team that went into the Dulce, New Mexico underground base and had some sort of shootout with um, extraterrestrials using high powered directed energy weapons. And when doctors like reviewed the injuries that he claimed to have sustained during that time, they said that whatever he had been injured with was hot enough to cauterize his wounds instantly. He was missing fingers from one hand and had some injuries on his chest, and that was what he claimed was evidence of this extraterrestrial battle that he had had. Now, supposedly, this was an operation that was carried out by President Carter in 1979 or 80, I guess, just before Reagan took office. And so, um, but so this guy like decides to come public with stuff and start talking about it, and he became like real involved in the UFO like conspiracy community,
I don't want to dive into this.
but he was killed. Well, he committed suicide, but like the way he committed suicide was um like he tied his hands and feet behind his back and then put a pillowcase over his head and shot himself twice in the back of the head or something like that. Um so
Sounds accurate.
right, yeah. And so just weird things like that, come to mind whenever you mention stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, like there's like all sorts of examples of like killed himself. How the fuck did he kill himself like that? Like must have been an easy one to do.
Your
Shot himself
energy
twice in the
dropped.
chest and
Your energy dropped and it brought me down. You piece
oh
of
man. You bring these topics up, man. It makes me think about this.
I don't think of them as heavy topics though. It's just fucking. All right, we're gonna wrap because I'm about to take a nap now. God, Kelly, where can
Well,
people find you? Hold on.
before we go, fluoride. We have to address a topic of
I'm not
fluoride and
even.
fluoride
No, we're
poisoning.
talking 2 hours. This is enough.
Has it been 2 hours? All
I'm
right.
not adding fluoride as
Next,
a mint
all
onto
right.
the dinner.
Next time we have to talk about fluoride, though.
That's fair. Fine.
All right.
All right.
You can find me online I have a new website address as well as the old one. So you can find me at www.arizonaart.info. You can also find me at www.artofaz.com. And I'm on Instagram at Arizona_artistry. So all of those places are good ways to locate me.
I will link all that in the description. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank Podcast. Stay tuned for our next